Welcome to Ring the Damn Bell. Tonight, I'm actually interviewing an independent wrestler, someone from who is wrestling right here in Minnesota, uh, Jason Nimitz. What's going on, my man?
Hey, what's going on, man? Happy to be on here.
Thank you for joining me. So let's get right into it. Tell me about Jason Nimitz. How did you end up going in the direction of being a professional wrestler?
Well, a lot like a lot of people that kind of got into the wrestling business is just like a super big passion for it since I was a really young kid. And like, I just never kind of grew out of that stage. I really just was a fan and, eventually just got super serious about it and was like, yeah, I eventually want to do this. So.
So, what did your family think you were crazy? I mean, what was their reaction?
Oh yeah, it was before I actually made the decision to join a wrestling school. It was like a war zone in my own mind. Like, how do I even bring this up to them? How do I, get their? I think I was like looking for their approval, but realizing at the same time, like I'm my own human being, I'm my own person, that I can do whatever I want. So, um, yeah, they thought I was nuts. They thought I was, you know, doing something a little bit too insane for what I could handle, but I'd like to
Yeah.
do it
So,
anyway.
where did you go to wrestling school?
I actually went to the Academy School of Professional Wrestling, taught by Ken Anderson in
In
St.
St. Paul? Yeah. Ken's a good dude. I had the opportunity to speak to him about possibly doing a project. My wife and I had a nonprofit organization. We used to help people in need with clothing and stuff like that. And we actually held a decent sized event. And Ken was supposed to come there to help us. He was excited about it. Unfortunately, he had vehicle problems. He wasn't able to make it, but he was a good guy, and I know he was genuinely disappointed that he couldn't come to do it. I'm hoping to have Ken on my show soon because he's a phenomenal guy. So when you graduated, well, actually, let's back up. Tell me about um, wrestling school and being trained by Ken Anderson, or as a lot of WWE fans would know him as Mr. Kennedy, and of course TNA, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I can say this, and I know that a lot of people would back me up when they say this. I'm very privileged to know Ken Anderson, the person. It's a bonus that it was Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Anderson, WWE and TNA superstar. That's really cool. But I'm privileged to know Ken Anderson as a person. He really is a very good human being, in my opinion, and just a good dude and a good trainer overall. So being in the ring with him and getting his insight on everything and kind of learning from his tree just is like it meant the world to me that I'm very 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 privileged to get that training from him and that friendship from him actually because I know not a lot of people had that same path and those same privileges as I did training. So.
Yeah. So how long how long were you being trained for at his school?
So I've actually never like really stopped going. I
Okay.
believe that like, all the top athletes and all the top sports are training every single day of the week, and then they have their events or games or whatever on the weekends. So I feel the same way. So I've been enrolled at the academy since March of 2022, and I try to go as often as I can when my schedule allows for it. So just trying to brush up on the basics and whatnot. So.
Yeah. So, of course, you were wrestling for, of course, had I been sporting since I got it. I first seen the show, which is Pinnacle Professional Wrestling, which is right here in Minnesota. I was actually introduced to Jason. My son and I went to a show in Crystal, and I didn't know what to really expect. I'll be honest, this was my very first time going to an independent wrestling show. I've seen WCW. Yes, I'm that old. Okay. I've seen WCW and WWE. But I've never been to an independent wrestling show, a smaller wrestling show. So I didn't know what to expect. And man, my son and I had a great time. You guys were just phenomenal. I mean, absolutely awesome. I can I can't say enough good things about you all. What really impressed me was the way you all really um, kind of got the fans, the audience involved in it by either talking crap to them, if you're a heel, or if you're a baby face, giving the kiddos a good old rub of the head, whatever. I was really, really impressed by that. So if anybody locally watches this podcast and you hear of these guys, please attend their show. They're awesome, and like I always say, you guys are the future of professional wrestling. Uh, but speaking of the future, what is your goal here? Are you wanting, and this may sound like a dumb question, but are you wanting to go to one of the top two, promotions, WWE or AEW? Are you happy with if TNA or NWA gave you an offer? I mean, what is your goal here?
It's actually a really good question in my opinion because you realize once you start to meet a lot of different people in the wrestling business, people do have quite a variety of different goals. There's some people who go through years and years of training just to have one match, just to have one match. So I'm privileged to have done what I've done as far as wrestling and how many matches I've had in my short career. But I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't want to sign a contract to a big organization. That's just always been a goal of mine. I'm just like never been one to just not shoot for the moon. Like I really like I've always set short-term goals for me, and like as I've hit those goals, I've always liked to extend the line, see how much more I can go and whatnot. And I think yeah, definitely one day I would like to sign a contract with a major wrestling company and do it full time. That would really be my dream, my end goal.
Yeah. So right now, so your wrestling name is Jason Rage, correct?
Right. Yep.
Yep. Oh, so tell me about that name. How did you come up with, you know, the last day being Rage, and how much of that gimmick is actually you, but just kind of raised up?
Yeah, so it I don't remember the exact like day or like what I was doing, but I remember one day I was probably like coming home from the gym or something like that, but I was just listening to the radio and that song by the Smashing Pumpkins, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, that despite all my rage, and I'm like, rage, I'm like thinking to myself like that would be a cool name for an my Xbox name. So like when I created an account online, I actually created a Jason Rage, and I had my Xbox Online gamer tag was Jason Rage 66. And then I kind of thought to myself like Jason Rage, that's my name for my wrestling character too. That's who I am. So and then the answer to the other part of that is that like realistically, like I think if you get to know me really well, you'll find out that how I am as a person and how I am as a wrestling character are like very similar. Like, and I know I am like a little bit wild and shit like that, but like I really am like I think I'm a very unique personality type person, and I'm very wild and explosive. Like a lot of people say, like I'm real quiet and introverted, in which I am. But the more and more you get to know me, the more I can basically warm up to you. Is just more and more wild and crazy that I actually get. So I think that it really is like the highest form of like the highest notch I can turn myself into is when I'm in the ring, just being my total self. Being that's what I feel like is being my like total self versus like being in like public environments or whatever, being more down notches, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I do think of my wrestling character, my real personality are very similar.
So I want to go back real quick to your training. Not too long ago, I watched 30 for 30, Ric Flair's story, which is a few years old. But one thing that he talked about was his training. That during training, just running the ropes, when he first started, it ripped his back up, and he actually quit. Did you have that same experience when you first started training with just things like running the rope? And did you get to a point that you doubted yourself or that you wanted to quit?
Um, so yeah, I actually had quite a bit of like those like beginner like in-ring pains that like a lot of people have. Is like you take your first bump and you realize that like you have like bad whiplash and your like neck muscles hurt really bad. And like running the ropes, like you get these nasty bruises on your back because people don't realize that those cables on those ropes are very, very tight, and they think they're just like very soft or whatever. But like no, they're actually very sprung really tight. When you hit the ropes hard, like you will get bruises on your back. So like I had a bit of that, but I really liked it, to be honest with you. I liked going through that physical like punishment almost. Like I like that. I like that like push myself in like a physical form and like just getting in better shape from doing in-ring training and whatnot. Like I don't know, I was determined to like push past any sort of physical barriers when it came to wrestling training because I loved it so much. Like the amount that the crowd would cheer for me outweighed way more than getting punched in the face or taking a bump or falling outside of the ring or anything like that. Like the cheers of the crowd is like so much more, so it's worth it all, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So, have you had the opportunity to hold?
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit, I think.
You there? There you are.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Last question.
No, no worries. Have you held your first title yet?
I have. Yeah, I've held 2 titles actually so far, and one of them I'm still holding currently. My first ever title win was in early August. It was the Showtime Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. It was my very first title that I won. They're based out of like Eau Claire area, the kind of the Wisconsin, one of the Wisconsin promotions. And actually, 2 weeks after that, I won my first tag team championships, based out of a promotion in Minneapolis called Rudos Promotions. And I won the tag team belts with my tag team partner, Geiga of the Gale. So that was pretty rich experience for me to win not only my first title, but my second title in a tag team division as well, within weeks of each other. So, in both matches, I really, really enjoyed. I would definitely put both those matches that I had on a pedestal, being like, these are some of my favorites. So,
Yeah. So, one thing that I found interesting, whenever my son and I would watch you guys, is you guys had an intergender gender match. Um, how do you feel about those matches?
personally, yeah, I don't mind intergender matches. Like, I really, at the end of the day, I believe that like we're all in-ring performers and we're all professional level athletes. So I believe that it's at the end of the day, it's about putting on the best show possible, and a lot of times the best show possible is going to be the most entertaining show. And sometimes when you can kind of show where like maybe a woman would have a disadvantage in a fight against a man, um, due to the physical components. It's like, how can we make this entertaining in a professional wrestling realm where a man and a woman can have a very equal match? So sometimes intergender matches are going to be the most entertaining on the whole show because they're intergender and they kind of have to, fight within those rules a little bit. I've had 2 intergender matches in my career. One of them was a tag team, so I've never had a problem with like, wrestling women, and as long as we're on the same consensus of everything, I don't have any issue with that. So
Yeah, and I tell you, before I go to my next question about this, the young lady, and I apologize, I cannot remember her name, who wrestled that night. Let me tell you, she's a bigger young lady, but holy crap, can she move like she's a lightweight? It was impressive seeing some of the things that she was doing. Both my son and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe she did that. She was a phenomenal performer. She really was. But what would you say to parents who say, who believes that this promotes domestic violence?
and that's a good question itself too. And I would say that know the nature of what you're watching. You know what I mean? Like, would you say like, would you, intentionally show your kids an R-rated movie and then be like, this promotes violence? Like, I believe that professional wrestling is of violent nature, even if at sometimes at the top level, even it's promoted towards kids. I think at the end of the day, you know, professional wrestling is two people fighting in the ring. It can get bloody, it can get nasty, it can be sexual at times, it can be, you know, hard to watch at times, it can be controversial. It can be everything good and bad. If you want it to be. Realistically, it's a controlled environment, as we know. So I say before you ever bring your kids to a wrestling show, just know that that can be something that is seen is the nature of like it being very violent and whatnot. So I would just say that, you know, it's, you know, there is bad messages and bad things promoted sometimes in the wrestling business. And, you know, I would never want to be associated with anything like that. I would always want to use my platform to promote good things of professional wrestling, or, you know, at least entertaining things. But just know that, you know, it is a possibility to, you know, promote bad things in the wrestling business, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, and you know, my take on it is this. You know, as a parent, I have 3 kids. I can, you know, when they're at that age, I control what they watch. So as a parent, guess what? If you don't want to see it, turn the channel. I mean, it's just as simple as that. So I know that there's been a lot of controversy when it comes to transgender wrestlers. Matter of fact, AEW had to deal with the whole thing in Oklahoma um, because of one of their wrestlers who was a transgender woman, which I think is ridiculous because professional wrestling, it's all about a gimmick, right? You are all dressed in gimmicks, so it doesn't matter. But do you feel the same way about transgender wrestlers as you do with, you know, getting in the ring with a woman and wrestling them? That look, it's all a gimmick. You know, you know, if someone can walk around as a dead man, why can someone not be a woman wrestling in the women's division type of a thing?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, you know, the performers are going to be performers, you know, and like you can really, you know, perform with anybody and, you know, put on an entertaining show with anybody, you know, like, you know, I feel the same way about a man wrestling a woman as a man versus wrestling a transgender, or a woman wrestling a transgender, or even like size differences. I feel the same way. You know, how can we have a 440-pound man face a 180-pound man? It's about, you know, telling that story, that the most compelling story that you can tell of, like, you know, how is this you know, little man gonna fight from underneath against this big man? You know, it's like if there's a, you know, physical limitation or a physical disadvantage of whatnot, like, just like, you know, with professional wrestling being a very manipulated environment, like you can tell those stories of being like, you know, we have, you know, wrestler A versus wrestler B. It doesn't have to be man versus man, or even weighted guy against another even weighted guy, or whatever. It really is a clash of characters, and that's comes from like your, you know, physical attributes as well. So I really believe that anybody can have a match with anybody, realistically.
So, who was some of your heroes growing up that were professional wrestlers?
Um Wow, like I really like went through phases of my life of having like favorite wrestlers and whatnot. But I would say like I really started to like guys like once I started to get into like the deathmatch scene. Like I would say probably like two of my favorite wrestlers of all time would be Japanese deathmatch wrestler Jun Kasai and American deathmatch wrestler Matt Tremont. Those are some of my like idols, if you want to use that word. But like um, I've always liked all types of wrestling, or any types of wrestling that I've watched. I've been biased towards Ken Anderson being one of my favorite wrestlers because, you know, obviously I trained with him, and going back and studying a lot of his matches and stuff like that has been really fun. But I've always liked, you know, kind of the guys that were like talked about a lot at the top. Like I liked Roman Reigns when he was at the top. I just saw, you know, maybe that's you know, bandwagon thing that I like the good guys, but like um that's kind of, I've kind of always followed the, you know, top guys and whatnot. But I always like Balls Mahoney too for some reason when I was a kid. It's because I thought he had like a very interesting personality, and he was like, his interviews were just wild, and he would just be super crazy on a lot of things. So I've always been drawn to him too. So
So a big ECW fan?
Oh yeah, yeah. I liked all the characters from ECW. To be honest with you, I liked Axel Rotten and Stevie Richards and the Blue Meanie and Rob Van Dam and Sabu and Tommy Dreamer. Like the list goes on, but I pretty much liked all the characters and match stipulations from ECW.
So have you ever participated in a death match?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was instantly one of the things that I wanted to cross off my bucket list in the world of professional wrestling. Is I wanted to do death matches. Like I wanted to go like head first, like straight into death matches. Like I never even had uh, a regular like street fight or a no DQ match before my first death match. Like I was like already into the death match shit for my first time. But yeah, I've done a bunch, and at the point right now, like within 2 years, like I did all the cool weapon spots that I wanted to do. Like I, went through a pane of glass and I used a bunch of light tubes and had barbed wire and thumbtacks in almost every single one of my hardcore slash death matches. And like I feel like content, oddly enough, which is something that I know a lot of people don't feel with wrestling. But like I bled buckets. I have had a scarred back. I have, got good matches with these cool names and death matches and stuff like that. And I'm not that I don't want to do them ever again. I do, but I don't feel like super needy to like wanting to get my next death match booking in or anything like that. Like I've been very blessed with. There's a couple things still on the death match bucket list that I want to hit, but definitely very thankful that I've been able to do the things that I can do in the deathmatch realm as well.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, AEW had a pay-per-view that we seen Adam Page and Swerve Strickland have a lights out match, and in the cage. Um, and it was somewhat violent. So people say I didn't consider it terribly violent. But people were really upset about that match. And what I found erotic about that was the same people who were crying and bitching about that match praised the match a few weeks later with CM Punk, where he actually um, legit injured McIntyre, 14 stitches in his head. But yet that match was praised, and the match that was supposedly too violent, where no one really got hurt, they they got shit on. Um, what do you think of those fans who say one thing is too violent, but the other thing is acceptable?
Yeah. So for me, like I don't know where people draw the line. I feel like people draw the line wherever they want to, and that line changes constantly. You know what I mean? Like things are justified in the past because, X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden things are, too much or too whatever for current day or whatever. I don't know. I think wrestling is subjective, and if if everyone wants to switch their mind on certain things from week to week, month to month, I guess that's their own opinion. Like if you're really that disturbed by anything of wrestling nature being too violent or whatever, like you don't have to watch it. I know myself, I don't ever force people to watch my death matches. People ask about it because they see my scars or they see my Facebook posts or whatever. I'm like, I'll tell you about it. I have no problem informing people. I've had many people say to my face, be like, deathmatch wrestling isn't real wrestling. And to that I say, well, you're entitled to your opinion, and you can think and feel free to think however you'd like. There's a fan base for wrestling, and I for deathmatch wrestling, I provide for those fans when I can. But if someone it comes down to an opinion. If they believe that like this is too much, or this match was too violent and this match wasn't, it's really a matter of opinion and who gets to say who
Right.
eligible for these opinions. So
Yeah, I agree. Today's wrestling fans drive me nuts because they'll say, well, you shouldn't watch this because this sucks, or you should watch that. And I'm like you, the great thing about professional wrestling is that you can see one match that you're not a big fan of, but the very big next match you love because that is your cup of tea. And that's what makes professional wrestling such a great thing. There's truly something for everybody, right? But for you, for Jason Nimitz, is there too far as you being a fan of professional wrestling, something that you say, okay, this match or this storyline, whatever it may be, this just went too far?
Yeah. For that too, I would say my opinion has changed on that. If you would ask me a couple years ago, I may have said something different, but like I think it like wrestling, like it's too far in the sense of like you have guys who are masking, like I'm going to talk about hardcore deathmatch wrestling here. They're masking their abilities in the ring with weapons. You know, they have lack of ability. Like, I feel like there's matches I've seen where these guys are not fully trained, not fully trained, and they're getting in the ring and they're being very unsafe, and just using weapons to cover up their lack of ability, realistically. And that's when I think it's too far. I think it's very, very irresponsible to, put another guy in that position. Well, and it takes two to tango, so it's another guy agreeing. Not like we don't just sign up for this or anything like that, but to put your opponent at risk for lack of ability, and it's very unenjoyable to watch when there's just no psychology, no storytelling aspect of matches, and that's when I think things are like quote unquote too far. Not a violence or anything line or too sexual or too much of anything. I think it's the line is drawn when there's lack of training, lack of actual in-ring ability is displayed. Is like when I like that's the turn the channel heat that I would see in wrestling matches. So that's not just death matches. I see it predominantly in death matches, but in regular matches too. It's like this is hard to watch because you guys are so bad.
Yeah, I mean, it drives me nuts when I hear people use the F word for professional wrestling, right? Which is fake. Because, I mean, you guys literally have, you know, your opponent and you guys have each other's lives in your hands. Like you're literally trusting somebody to do what they need to do with your body in order to sell who they are, and you're doing the same. And especially with those death matches, I mean, they could get pretty brutal. Describe for me the most painful thing that you've done in a death match ring.
Ooh, that's a good question, man. Most painful thing I've ever done? Honestly, dude.
Like, is there something that you've done that after the match you were like, yeah, I won't ever do that particular spot again?
So honestly, like people have asked this question and it's not exactly the answer that they think. Like I once hit my own move on a guy and I landed on my shoulder. I landed wrong. And that was more painful than any like real like pane of glass or skewers or thumbtacks or anything. It really was because I can handle cuts so much more than I can handle like taking bad bumps or anything like that. Um, I've like jammed my fingers that have hurt like really bad too. But like honestly, like in the realm of hardcore matches, like I hate chair shots. I really, really do. Chair shots to the back for me are the worst. I hate
Really?
like chair shots to the back for me is like it's like a spine wrenching sensation. Like like I'd rather go through a table. I'd rather take a suplex on the ground. I'd rather go through a pane of glass any day of the week than really take chair shots. And I know that sounds wild, but like for some reason I've been hitting the back with a chair and it hurts so worse. It's
Yeah.
just bad.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that
I get it. Look, I don't care how much training you go through, and I don't care how much you're able to, um, uh, or how much you're able to protect yourself. When you get hit, regardless if it's with an object or with a fist or even the hand, an open hand, if you're getting hard enough where it's leaving a mark on you, it's going to hurt. I don't care, like I said, how much training you're going through. It's going to hurt. Again, that's why as someone, I'm 52 years old who's been a wrestling fan since I was a little kid, I hate when I hear people say, "Oh, it's fake," because it's not. You guys are legit athletes that takes legit bumps. The only thing about professional wrestling is, yes, it is the end of the match is choreographed. Not really choreographed, but you guys know the winner or the loser, right? But other than that, I mean, you guys are taking legit bumps. I mean, you guys aren't breaking arms or getting bruises because you guys are out there doing ballet. I mean, that's all there is to it. Um, what is your reaction when you hear people who are not really wrestling fans say, "Oh, what you do, man, that stuff's not real."
Dude, to that I say I wish it was fake. Tell me the trampoline that you think the ring is. Show me which ring that is. I want to take bumps in that ring. You know, uh, I wish it was fake. I wish it was more, smoke and mirrors than people think. Like people have asked me before, like, have I ever been punched in the face? Yes, I've been punched in the face many, many, many times for real, as hard as somebody can. Yes, even if that's surprising to somebody, you know, wrestling hurts. That's what our coach says. Sometimes you take a bad bump at class, or you get punched in the face, or you get the wind knocked out of you. Ken just says sometimes wrestling hurts, and that's the damn truth. Like sometimes it just does. It's just no, faking it for lack of a better term. Like you will get hurt in this wrestling business, and there's people who can accept that fact, and then there's people who can't accept that fact, and the people who can't don't stay in the business for very long or even make it in the business at all. So, yeah, I'm more than willing to prove to anybody, that wrestling's not as fake as they think it is. So, and show them what it takes to be a professional wrestler. So, but I also don't feel insecure on like having to like go around proving that to anybody. I guess like I don't feel the need to be like, oh, I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a tough ass dude and all this and that. Like, I'm just like people are going to have their own opinions of it, and I think that's going to be the stigmatism for professional wrestling for a long time. And yeah, pretty much till the end of time. Unfortunately, it's always going to have that like, oh, that shit's fake type of people. But like it really is like the people with an open mind and people who actually go to experience a wrestling event, you would see very quickly on like this is not exactly like fake how they think it is. Like it's not like guys just swinging for a punch and missing by 5 feet, and the guy who's selling it, it's very much like very physical and like very taxing on your body at the end of the day. And I think that's why a lot of guys get sensitive on the F word, the fake, because it's like, how can this be fake if it's so taxing on my body? I wake up every single day in pain. I wake up at 2 a.m. having to take ibuprofen because I can't fall back asleep. You know what I mean? Like, and like that's not fake. That's not fake to me. Like and all the other stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
but
so
opinions.
yeah, so WWE has come up. I think it's called WWE ID now. Where how I heard Triple H explain it is they try to discover wrestlers on the independent scene, and they offer to pay for them for more training, and they watch them kind of grow, and they take them in when they believe they're ready. Has that something you have checked into? Have you bothered to send tapes to any bigger promotion?
So I think like from what I've heard of the WWE ID program, it sounds like a really, really good idea. I haven't like I haven't done enough research on it myself to kind of fully know exactly what it is. I kind of heard just like a little bit of what you explained, like kind of what's been explained to me, like it's a program to helping young independent wrestlers kind of like move on to like a future role in WWE, which I think is totally awesome. I think that's something that like I would be interested in greatly. I would just have to kind of like more smart myself up on like what exactly is and how to like apply for whatnot for such things. But like as far as like sending like any of my stuff for like bigger promotions, not yet at least. I'm just more piecing the puzzle putting the pieces together for my whole like package as a wrestler, like, you know, for what is I bring to the table and whatnot, just trying to piece all that together before I feel ready to like take that step on like contacting a you know, bigger promotion. But then I, you know, at the same time, then I feel like to myself, like, will I ever feel fully ready? You know, sometimes you just kind of have to like jump out of the nest and like, you know, fly on your own, I guess. So that's something that's definitely I'm going to be looking forward to in the future, like doing more research on that and kind of studying and see what I can learn from that. So yeah, that's definitely a cool option, I think.
So, do you have like a 2 year goal, a 5 year goal? Like, where do you hope to see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think about this question a lot, but I don't know if I have like a straight up answer for it, because like the way my mind thinks and kind of my mentality is like, you know, like one show at a time. I'm really at the type of person to, you know, even if I got a Friday, Saturday shoot, you know, I'm going to be thinking about the Friday show before Friday happens, and then, you know, eventually the Saturday show. So I like to take things one step at a time is another way to say it. But I think my goal for my wrestling character is like I want people to like understand who I am, and like my 5 year to 10 year goal is going to be similar to my goal for my next match. Is I just want people to know who I am. I want people to associate me with being, you know, a psychopath, a, you know, crazy insane guy that they see on shows. You know, I hope that people see me and be entertained. If that can get me future opportunities, I'd be more than blessed and more than thankful to, you know, take those opportunities. But I would love for every single person to come to one of my matches and be like, you know, whether that's the first time they see me or, you know, their 16th or whatever time they see me, it's just like, oh, yep, he's the crazy guy. I'm entertained because I seen Jason Rage. So that's kind of my goal, like just kind of being more like present in the moment and just like riding the rocket ship of my career and just being like, you know, I don't know where it's going to take me, because I wouldn't have told you. I like 2 years ago when I started this whole thing, I would have never seen myself where I am right now. You know, I never would have thought people would want me enough to be on cool podcasts and ask me to do these cool shows with these cool matches and cool stipulations. Like, I never thought any of that. I was the one match guy. I was like, let's do one match to at least get there first. So, yeah.
Yep. So, just a couple more questions. And before we wrap it up, now I'm going to give you a heads up for your very last question. Do your very last thing. I want you to introduce everyone who may see this to Jason Rage, in whatever way you want to. If you just want to describe who Jason Rage is, or if you want to cut a quick promo, you can do that too. It's whatever you feel comfortable of introducing Jason Rage to those who have never seen Jason Rage. But before we do that, do you keep up with today's product?
Not as much as I'd like to. I like I hate to be the too busy excuse, but like, yeah, I just like have a hard time keeping up with the top product. But like, I try to catch like a little bit of what I can with like, you know, what's going on. Just try to stay update with, you know, the current things. So
Yeah, I've been really surprised at the independent wrestlers that I've talked to, that most of them would say, yeah, absolutely. If I could get some type of a contract with WWE or AEW, I definitely want to go. But at the same time, they say that they don't watch the current product at all whatsoever. And at least you have, you're busy, but you try to keep up with it. A lot of the guys that I've talked to hasn't even said that. They just don't like the current product. Obviously you can't speak for everybody. You can only speak for yourself. In your opinion, why do you think that is, that a lot of today's, or it seems like some of today's independent wrestlers um don't bother to watch the the current scene?
um I think that kind of comes down to like the mindset of some guys. Like some guys really like one type of wrestling, one type of match, one type of character, and that might not be displayed on the, you know, WWE and AEW platforms. I think guys are easily turned off if they see something that's like not exactly their cup of tea. When I watch wrestling, I try to like, keep an open mind and be like, I think all types of I think all types of professional wrestling is entertaining. I can find any type of match, any type of era, any type of style of wrestling, and find it entertaining in one way, shape, or form. But I think, you know, I think it just kind of comes down to guys just seeing that, and sometimes, the top product isn't always the best product, but, I think people can be pretty quick to judge the product and not give it a full chance, when they're watching it, trying to keep up with it. So,
Yep. All right. So, whatever way you feel comfortable, because I know I'm kind of putting on a spot to say cut a promo type of thing, you know, either describe who Jason Rage is or, become Jason Rage for us. But whatever you want to present to someone who may not have seen or know who Jason Rage is.
yeah. So Jason Rage, he's a guy who is a psychopath due to his own unsolved childhood trauma. So a lot of that comes from the reality of the things that had happened in my life, and I like to say, like, I'm just a little bit crazy, and I never feel the need to, like, my words aren't gonna like say that necessarily, my actions will, I feel like I really do live out my character in my real life, and people have told me to my face, while I'm just a normal guy sitting at the bar or whatever, doing my thing, people see my scars and they think, like, that's a good starting conversation point, as they see the scars on my back and they'd be like, whoa, what the hell is that from? And I'll be like, well, let me tell you. I love the death match scene of everything, as obvious in this whole like conversation and whatnot. Like, I've always loved that adrenaline rush and that release of the like pent up aggression that you get, and like, being able to like display your artwork in the ring. And like, I feel like I have that ability to like have a decently high pain tolerance and be someone in that ring who can like put on a show with violence, because like at the end of the day, like humans are drawn to violence. And, even if they don't like it, like you see a car crash on the side of the road, you're going to be looking at that, you know what I mean? Even though it's horrifying. Like I guess I'm one of the guys who are like willing to be that like, horrifying image, like go home and like people will really, really be like, really, really stunned. Like they could see, 4 matches on a car, but one of them is mine, a death match. And they will remember my match, being like, oh, like, that was a cool 450 splash I did, or that was a really good technical chain wrestling I did. But you see that guy get slammed on the light tubes? Like, that's like, I think that's a little bit more my role. And like, that's what I think Jason Rage is like somebody who is just like, maybe got a screw loose or two, and, and like, I like to keep my craziness as much as I can inside the realm of professional wrestling, but that's kind of where it all comes out for me. Is like, I'll be that cool dude that you can have a beer with. I'll be a good person to hang out with, but like, once I'm in the ring, like you see my full personality come out. It's not necessarily like an extension of myself. It's the truest version of myself. Whereas like, normal Jason is considered watered down Jason. That's the way I think about it. So, yeah, I'm the one that's willing to participate in violence is the way I think about it. So
You're the one that's also very talented. Thank you for coming to this Liberty Nothing podcast that I have. I really appreciate it. And look, any fans that happen to be in Minnesota or wherever else you may see Pinnacle Professional Wrestling being advertised, trust me, go watch these guys. Not just Jason Nimitz, aka Jason Rage, but they have so many talented men and women who aren't making a lot of money. They're doing this for the love of the sport. Yes, I call professional wrestling a sport. I hate the whole entertainment crap. It's a sport. If you can get injured and you're performing and it takes you know, any amount of energy that's physical. It's a freaking sport. Just want to put that out there. But yeah, go check these guys out because I'm telling you, and ladies too, um, it's so much fun. It's a blast. If you watch any of my podcasts, I could be a pretty, you know, critical prick at times, and I have nothing bad to say about you guys, just because it was so much fun. It really was, and I really enjoyed it. So you guys really check them out. Be looking for the recap of Monday Night Raw tomorrow night. Me and my co-host, we're going to be talking about the fallout from this weekend's Survivor Series. A lot of things happened that left some of these storylines open. You can see what WWE is doing with that. Jason, again, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to coming watching you all again, and I will definitely do that. You have a good night, and everyone watching, you guys have a good night. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's free. It doesn't cost a thing. Please support me and what I'm trying to build here. You guys have a great night.